Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm so excited. I'm going to be starting the first in a series of decoupage videos. I've never done decoupage before. It's been around forever, but I've just sort of stumbled on it by accident and I thought I'd give it a try. So let's get started. Okay guys, so I have my two jars here that are covered with chalk paint and they have dried. The first coat has dried and I'm going to apply the top coat of each, but first I'm going to decide which napkins I'm going to use so that I can match the background on the jars. Now I like this sunflower one here, but if you notice it has sort of like a bluish background, so I'm going to try to match the paint and then paint that one that blue. And then for my second jar I have this fall theme one, and I'm going to try, this background is mixed here, so I'm going to try to match the beige color as best as I can. So I'm going to put a little bit of acrylic paint in this dish here. I don't want to put too much, but I also want to make sure I have enough. Okay, and then for the blue, I'm going to first put a dab of this darker blue here. Just a very small amount of that, because this blue is not super dark. So I'm going to mix that and then see what we get. And although I put just a little dab, this is definitely too blue, so I'm going to add some more acrylic paint here, white acrylic. And this blue looks almost a little bit like purplish, so I'm going to add with a toothpick here just a little drop of red to that to hopefully give it that more purple look. Very, very small amount. And I'll put the napkin off to the side because I don't want it ruined. And we see the color looks a lot closer now to that. So I'm going to just go with that for right now, and we'll adjust if needed. I'm going to just start putting a thin coat on this jar here. And I'm going to try to keep the strokes in one direction here. With the chalk paints, definitely I got more texture, but I don't necessarily need this to be texturized right now. But the chalk paint did work well in that it provided the texture for this other coat of paint to lay flat on, as the glass surface is smooth. And again, I just want a thin coat because it's more or less covered with the one coat of chalk paint. I just want a thin coat just to provide the background. So I'm going to get this finished up and then we'll come back. Okay guys, so I've painted the jar that light blue. I have a little bit of color left, so I just covered it with some cling wrap just to keep it moist, because I'm sure I'll have to go in and do a touch-up. So I'm going to let it dry and get started on this jar. So I have this napkin here. The background color is like a beige. It's quite close right now, so I'm going to try to match that. So I'm going to put a little bit of white acrylic paint in this little bowl here. And hopefully this one will be easier to match because I have something a little bit mustard color here, which is close. And I'm going to put just a tiny dab of it there. And we'll get started painting this one. Just a very thin coat because again the chalk paint did a nice job covering it. So while the jars are drying, I'm going to go ahead and prepare the napkin. I'm going to be covering the jar with most of it, but I'm going to take a rough outline with the wet paintbrush. So let's start here because I want it to have like a sort of a jagged edge. So we'll just use our fingers to tear it very carefully. And I'm going to do the same with the bottom. Take the wet paintbrush and run it along the edge here, and then use your fingernails just to tug off the edges here. The next step is to separate the plies. So this should be a 2-ply, and I'm going to put a little drop of water on my fingertips, and hopefully that will be enough to separate it. Yes. Okay, so we're going to just separate it. So we only need the top layer, and gently separate it here. So now we have just the really thin layer. Okay. The second part, I keep it because there's other projects that I plan to do with just plain napkin. So I'm going to put that off to the side. So next we're going to do this one. This is for the second jar. So what I'm going to do is isolate the leaf, some corn, some acorns, some of these other twigs here, and the berries. Now you don't have to wet it, but because this is actually tearing quite nicely without it being wet, but wetting it also does help it to tear easier. Also because I don't want to ruin the other objects that are so close. Okay guys, so both jars are completely dry now, and I even touched up the bottom here with just a chalk paint for right now. So we're going to get started with applying the napkin to the jars. All right, so I'm going to start off with the sunflower one here, the blue one, and I have my Mod Podge. I'm going to pour some out into a smaller container so that I'm not double dipping. So I'm just pouring some out here. And I'm using Mod Podge Matte. This is my first time using it. So what we're going to do is position the napkin on the bottle the way we want it to be. So I'm going to put it towards the edge here. This kind of curves in, so I'm going to just put it up against the edge there and make sure it's positioned the way I want it to be before I start gluing it. Now it doesn't exactly match up right here, and I have tore off this extra piece from right there, and I'm going to add that somewhere in here, and then if we need more we'll add more. Right here I'm going to hold it in place. I'm going to take my Mod Podge, put a generous amount on the brush, and then just start brushing it here. And I'm going to go just below where it starts to curve there. All right, so let's start with that, and then I'm going to gently, just very gently tug on it and smooth it on. We don't want to mess with it too much because the napkin is very, very delicate. So I have right here, I'm going to add some more Mod Podge. I'm going to smooth that, smooth the edges there. And then I'm going to flip it around, do the same thing for this side, and be careful not to touch that area. Actually, what I'm going to do is just put my hand inside the bottle. Now, we don't want too much Mod Podge because the napkin is super thin and we're going to go over the top of it with more Mod Podge. This is just to kind of hold it in place. So now we're going to smooth that over. Now, I don't mind that it's sort of wrinkled or textured looking. The bottle itself or the jar itself is very textured, so that could be why also. And so these areas that are on top, I'm going to just put some Mod Podge underneath. Mod Podge expanded the napkin, so it was able to match up a little bit better than it did before. Okay, so I have one other piece here that I would like to add. A little piece of crumbled plastic wrap here. I'm going to go over this and smooth it out some more. Those little areas that were very gently, of course. Those areas. In here. It's quite sticky, so I think I'll leave it alone. The goal is to not manipulate the napkin too much because it's very delicate, and when it's wet it's even more delicate. While that dries a little bit, I'm going to put that off to the side, and then we're going to get started on this other one here, the fall themed one. I just wanted to match the blue that's in the napkin a little better with the areas around it, the immediate areas around it. I have my leftovers, so what I'm going to do is add just a touch of red to that. That will give it a little bit more purple toned blue. So we're going to do a little bit of touch up here. That's just to cover the joint right there. Okay guys, so I thought it would be cute to have some little dots on the jar. So I'm going to put some little dots there randomly. Some little yellow dots. Just to tie in the yellow that's on the sunflowers. Okay guys, so this is dry, so I'm going to apply my second coat of Mod Podge. This will help seal it. And we'll let that second coat dry.